already been welcomed to the Greater Austin STEM Ecosystem PD. Please welcome yourselves. Our next speaker is Gustavo Perez, and so let's give him a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, and make sure and put your name in the chat so that we can take attendance and send you your continuing education credits. All right, now you can go, sorry.
Wonderful, no, thank you, Brooke. Yes, Brooke is the official police for the session. I'm just here as a presenter. So whatever she says, we do. So thank you for being here, Brooke, and helping manage time. So feel free to, as people ask questions, please just ask your question, and Brooke's gonna go ahead and, let me know. I won't reserve questions toward the end. We'll just take them as we go, just because I'm afraid we may run out of time. But thank you all for being here. My name is Gustavo Perez. I'm a STEM specialist with the Region 1 Education Service Center in Edinburgh, Texas. I just, through some of the efforts with TA, we've established our own South Texas ecosystem. And so we're working towards making sure that we serve our communities. A large part of what we're doing is both formal STEM programs and informal STEM programs. So definitely STEM camps is part of what we're doing. We rolled out a whole series of STEM camps over the summer. And that's kind of why the thinking behind submitting this proposal to this group, the Austin Greater Ecosystem, simply because I want to share what we've done in our region, and hopefully we can share some of those best practices with you all as well. So again, I'm not going to really focus too much on funding, right? That's always a question, right? How do we get funding for STEM camps? Well, you got to go out there and make partnerships, right? So the nature of the session is going to be more on, once you get funding, assuming you get that covered, what do you do with it, right? And so that's kind of the nature of what we're going to do with this particular session. So definitely want to welcome everybody here. Some of you may be working with, formal STEM education, informal STEM, higher ed, even work. So thank you all for being here, and please, I welcome your questions as we go through this. Just real quick, this is me. I started out as an engineer out of Austin, Texas, worked with many great companies. This has kind of shaped my perspective on STEM education. Often I'm in different groups of people, and it's funny how people define STEM differently depending on their vantage point. In my own experiences, when I speak to higher ed, they talk about attainment, and dual crediting and credits. And so that's a big part of what STEM needs to be, right, is opportunity. If I talk to industry, their conversation switches to employability skills, right? And not necessarily the content, which is surprising, right? And then when I talk to, of course, our K through 12 folks, we're all about content, right? If it's not in the standard, it's not gonna happen, right? We wanna see it in the standards and in our programming, which is what you need to do. But so my background's a little bit kind of a bipolar background. I think I lean more towards the industry side of things, which makes me a good specialist in my role. What I do on a day-to-day is mainly staff development for teachers, project-based learning, engineering, computer science, kind of building on my strengths, right? So that's a little bit about me. Right now, I'm going to spend about 30 minutes or so talking about how we organize our camps. Right? What are the things you need to think about when you're planning a camp? What's your delivery approach? What's the approach you need to take in terms of just pedagogy, right? How do we do this effectively? There's a lot of folks doing camps out there, and they come in all sorts of flavors. And I just want to share some of the guiding points that we took when we designed our camps, right? And then talk about recruitment, talk about just general logistics and how to run a camp effectively. And then I want to show you guys an example of one of the camps that we ran, because we ran several camps throughout the summer, and kind of just glean out some of those pieces so we can, so you can ask some questions, and maybe I can field some of your questions, right? I am going to put the links to this post-presentation on the chat. I know, Brooke, you're probably recorded and have it available, but I'm going to go ahead and do it right now, just because I know that when I'm in different sessions, I like to have my stuff there, like, I want to be able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Let me pull this up real quick. Give me one quick second. Let me get my windows out of the way here. And I'm going to just put here PDFs, right, with an arrow. And again, this is a link to my Google shared folder. So click on that and you'll have both of these presentations as you need them, right? fire this up again here. All right, so let's talk about the beginning of this, right? So what is our approach? Well, you got to have some approach when you start a STEM camp, whether it's informal, whether it's for third grade, whether it's for high school. What is your approach? What is your pedagogy, right? And so in our case, we've been very, fortunate that TA has provided some guiding frameworks on how to do this. If I could underline this whole definition, I would, right? But I try to underline just the main parts. Definitely hands-on, which has made it kind of interesting because now we're in a COVID world, in a virtual world. So how do we do this? How do we do this hands-on? That's a big mystery sometimes, right? How do we apply academic content within real-world problems, and blend all this stuff, knowing that kids are at home. So that's the challenge that we had before us, right? How do we make this definition come to life, knowing that we have a different situation, a different set of circumstances, right? And I want to share with you our approach. So TA, of course, has laid out a gold standard of what schools say they need in schools, right? This is K through 12. This is TA going out into the state in their learning tours and saying, hey, higher ed, K-12, what should we have in our schools? I'm going to focus mainly on the instructional method at the end, which is project-based learning, but just know that any STEM program has an integrated approach. It's aligned, it's equitable, and of course, hopefully promotes some kind of fluency in different pieces. All of these aspects can be brought into a STEM camp in different ways and at different levels, right? But in my case, I'm going to focus mainly on the project-based learning aspects of it and how we actually did it with the students. So this is kind of a general guide, and I take this from different pieces. It's kind of a model. If you look at the Buck Institute of Education, right, I think it's called PBL Works, they have a similar model, right? You always want to start with getting kids to engage in a problem, kind of like the definition that TA presented earlier. What is that problem that students can really relate to, right? And not really a textbook problem. It's got to be something with meat, right? Because again, you want to engage kids in doing something about it, right? So this is the PBL Gold Standard for instruction, right? This is what we use in our camps. We start off kids with a problem, and then we have them build some kind of product, depending on the platforms that we're using, and then they present their solutions, right? So problem, products, presentation, kind of easy way, right? Learn it with the P's, right? P cubed or something, right? So in our case, we start off with a project launch. We launch the project, right? There's something that we have to engage the kids in. It's real, it's active. We present typically a driving question, and then we get into the stage of product development and mini lessons. So we cycle in a lecture, cycle in a little mini lesson, and then we give them time to work. This is that whole asynchronous, synchronous process, right? Synchronous, we're there face to face with them, kind of guiding them. And then we kind of let them go to do some of the work on their own and bring them back, right? Every camp's going to be different, right? And how you actually roll this out, but think of it as a little cyclical, routine, right? If you're a teacher, you're familiar with formative assessment, right? You're kind of gauging your kids here, right? Where are they at? What can I support them to get them to the next level? When the products start to take form, then you're ready to have the kids showcase. So in this case, normally in a face-to-face, you gather kids around a table and everybody kind of sees a demonstration, right? Well, now we don't have that opportunity. So we have virtual environments. So there's different ways you can do this. I definitely want to share some of those with you as well. But again, this is kind of the big picture, right? You want to think about having a problem, having kids develop some kind of product, and then having them showcase their work in a very real way, okay? So superimpose on that process, you may need a learning process, something more specific. Thinking about that little circle, right, where you're teaching, giving them time to work, teaching, giving them time to work. We use the inter-design process on our camps because it was a great process, but you could definitely use the 5E model for science or some other design thinking from Google. There's other processes you can use or frameworks. You definitely want to have some kind of framework, right? Because it's just going to structure your stages, and in their heads, they're seeing it as stages, right? So you're guiding them through the different pieces. So in our case, we began with asking a question, giving them time to explore, we call it the imagined state, and be very explicit, right, with the students. Right now we're in the imagined state, so let's brainstorm. And then we transition to plan. Okay, now we're done with imagine. Now we're planning, right? Now we're picking one of those ideas that you had, and now we're really fleshing it out. right? Okay, so now that we're creating, right, and now we're improving, right, we're getting feedback from each other. So being very cognizant of where you're at in this learning cycle is going to help the kids not get lost in this virtual world, right? So we understand that most of what students see in school are either reading and writing and math, right? For whatever reason, that's the way we learn other modalities, right? So some kids may be able to think about things kinesthetically, right? They need some movement, some action, right? So you bring that into your camp some way in an activity, right? Music, right? Images, pictures, nature, right? And talking to each other in chats, or just being reflective, call it Me Smart, right? These other modalities are just great ways for kids to kind of express a little bit more about their individuality, right? When we talk about personalizing learning experiences, I ask you, what defines who you are, right? What defines who you are? So you ask kids, tell me about yourself, right? Tell me what you're good at, and then giving them a platform to really express themselves, right? So again, this goes back to the whole social emotional learning that's happening now with having to deal with a virtual environment, right? So talking about, that's our approach. Let's talk about just general best practices, right? What did we use, and what is our vision for how to make this process come to life? So one thing is that we wanted to promote creative exploration. Not doing anything in the summer that they're not going to see, in a couple of weeks when school starts. So we wanted to use our summers to reinforce some of those basic, skills that they're going to need. Do they know how to get into a chat? Do they know how to chat? First of all, do they know how to engage the camera, right? Do they know how to do this virtual world, right? So it's kind of like, let's give them an opportunity to fail, here in the summer program. That's not that, that high stakes, but at the same time reinforce what they may be seeing once they go back to school, right? So some things will be different, some things will be the same. Let's give them a test run, right? And get them comfortable with this environment, because ultimately, independent of where they're at, they're going to engage in a virtual environment. So why not use a summer program to reinforce some of those? So students are dealing with this situation in many different ways, right? And so there's a little bit of stress. We call it social emotional learning, but there's a little bit of stress on just connecting, right? They don't have a good attitude about it, right? That's going to be 50% of the win. If they can have a good attitude about going back to school, hopefully they'll do a better job with the content, right? And next, of course, in the summer, we wanted them to promote their personal advocacy and agency. So if we're really engaging in real world problems, how can we structure our camps so that they can see themselves as activists in their communities, or being active towards a problem, right? So just some guiding points. And finally, of course, definitely want to engage them in active problem solving, right? We use all kinds of platforms, right? And I encourage you to kind of explore what those work for you. In our case, we've used Minecraft, we've used CodeSpaces, our virtual 3D environments, we've used Scratch for programming. We've used household items as well. It doesn't have to be a software, right? But think about your platform and really focus your activities around the student and their ideas rather than the platform. That's the one thing. So sometimes we can get so caught up into the platform that it becomes more about the platform than the actual students, right? So just be careful with that aspect of it, right? So how do we bring it all together, right? So let's talk a bit about how we did that, right? Number one, we had to have very clear camp expectations. So I encourage you, what is the nature of your camp? What is your end goal? Is it content intervention? Is it enrichment? What is the general outcome that you want to start for your camp? It's got to serve a purpose, right? In our case, we just wanted kids to have fun over the summer, help them maintain connected with some literacy, and just motivate them through the summer, right? That was our goal. But yours could be a lot more academic in nature. Beyond that, what are your challenges? In our case, one of the biggest challenges that we had was just access. We had students just not being able to log in. Internet wasn't really a possibility in some areas. We have some colonias that don't even have, running water type stuff. So it's really tough, right? So what are your challenges, and how are you going to structure your camp to reach out to some of these communities where students may have some, may not have access to some of the things, right, that you would need for a virtual camp. The other thing is that if they do have access, they may have limited bandwidth, so because they may have shared their bandwidth with other people in the house, right? Or they may not have a space to actually dedicate a space to deal with the camp in privacy. So like you may have something in the background going on, and it kind of disrupts the student, right? So just be flexible with this whole process, because again, in our case, we knew that we had a very diverse background of our kids, Title I schools. So, and having those supports there, right? So, and not forcing them to share their screen if they don't feel comfortable, because you don't know what's going to be in the background, right? And of course, also just sharing guidelines on how to reassuring the parents that the camps were protected, that there's not somebody on here that's not supposed to be on here, and that we have enough staff to monitor all the activities, right? Just making sure that it's a safe learning space for them and productive. So beyond that, one thing that we did is we just held meetings, right? A lot of pre-meetings just to go over every pieces. And again, you can't plan enough, right? That's the main guiding point that I would say is, what are the things that you need to cover early enough with your team so that you can ensure that you have a good success, right? Of course, you can't plan for everything, right? Just know that things are going to happen, and but at least you do your homework, and everybody's on the same page regarding what you're trying to do. So again, plan to have definitely several meetings prior to the camp with whoever your partners are with your camps. One of the things that I want to talk about right now is just your recruitment plan, right? What is a recruitment plan? So in our case, having event flyers, right, available, that are jazzy, because you want to recruit kids to participate, right? Maybe having a web page, right? Dedicated web page for the camp. So kids can go in there, parents can go in there, kind of see what's going on, very transparent. This is all going to help with recruiting kids to participate in the camp, right? Using social media as well, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you have at your disposition to kind of, push out your camp. And if you're working with a particular program, a lot of times they have rosters, so going out and doing actual, direct emails to let them know that this is coming up and that they should be part of it, right? You want to just encourage as much participation as possible, especially because this is a virtual camp. So face-to-face is different. Kids just show up. In our case, struggle a little bit with just recruitment. Even with all these things, we saw around a 30% to 50%, and that was tough, right? So, what we did is we hosted multiple versions of the same camp, right? Simply because we weren't going to be able to reach out, get enough kids to participate the first round. And again, these are some of the camps that we offered. These are concurrent camps, and I'll talk a bit more about this in a second. But we offered a camp on digital citizenship, virtual STEM challenges in general, at-home STEM projects, and digital e-portfolios. And I'll talk a bit more about those in a second. And we did it in partnership with the local university GERA program, right? They have a cohort of students, we formed a partnership. So we offered the camps again for their programs, and so they kind of set the goals of what they wanted to see. Beyond that, this is how we rolled it out. A busy grid here. Hope it's not too confusing for you all, but we had again, that's not 50. That's 150 plus students per camp. That's a lot of kids, right? I mean, normally in a face-to-face we'd be able to handle that, but luckily we only recruited around 50 kids per camp. So for every camp, we had 50 kids in every single slot. And these are half-day camps, all run concurrently, right? So in day one, we had digital citizenship going on, we had digital portfolios, and we had STEM home projects, right? And then day two, the cohort of the kids stayed the same, but then we would switch the topic. So if you look at cohort one, they started out with digital citizenship. Day two, they did a camp on virtual STEM challenges. Day three, STEM at-home projects, and of course, day 4, digital portfolios. In terms of our presenters, I might have started out day 1 with, cohort 3. Day 2 was kind of like my breather day as a presenter. And then day 3, I went to cohort 1, and then of course, day 4, I ended up with cohort 2, right? Again, you can structure this many different ways. But for us, in order to be able to manage the most kids within a week, this is the structure that we used, right? And of course, these are the campuses that were participating. We had 6 high school campuses that were participating in different ways, again, throughout the camps, right? We did provide Zoom links that were dedicated for each cohort of students. So the Zoom link didn't change, right? So the same Zoom link was used day 1, day 2, day 3 for each cohort. This helped with just getting the flyers out. So the flyer went out to Porter High School, then they only had to worry about one Zoom link. Because they logged into that Zoom link, camp was there for them, that was it, right? And that kind of made it easier. Instead of having 1,000,001 Zoom links, right, it made it better we just by cohort, okay? Personnel and support, right? A big part of this was just finding people. So I was kind of the lead, and I kind of did a session myself. I did a camp on STEM at home projects, and I recruited other people that I knew could handle doing a virtual camp. So I went out into our organization and said, hey, I need some rock stars, right, to help me roll these out. Ms. Ojeda, amazing with the tell. She did a session on digital citizenship. Ms. Escobar did one on virtual breakout rooms with STEM challenges, right? And of course, Carla did one on e-portfolios, right? Helping high school kids develop an e-portfolio where they start to structure their products, right? And of course, I did one on at-home projects. Just, what can you do at home with STEM? And I'm gonna share that with you in a second of what I did. But again, every one of them did just a knockout job on their part. I wish I had enough time. I'd probably take another 3 hours just to show you everything they did. But it was amazing. I'm telling you, it was just amazing, the creativity that they displayed in setting up their camps, right? The general structure for our concurrent camps. So, the little people in blue, those are our facilitators, right? So much like your Brooke would be a blue person, right? She's a facilitator, right? She's making sure that everybody's, okay, we're all here, everybody's firing all cylinders. She's monitoring the chat. We had the same thing in our camps, right? We need somebody to monitor. So while I'm running the show, I need somebody to be managing the back end of the camp, right? Virtually, right? Beyond that, we had somebody there for tech support. So if a student couldn't get on, right? If a student had trouble just, getting on to the camp, hey, there's somebody there to call them up, and try to figure out how to troubleshoot to get them on. Trying to drive that participation. So, and of course, the people in white, those are the kids, right? Those are participants, right? So we had, I plan to have a facilitator and a tech support in every single camp going on at the same time, right? A lot of logistics, right? Again, the more you plan, the better it'll take off, right? Because once it starts, it's like it's starting, and it's like you don't know what's going to happen, right? Kind of like right now, like we're here. I'm assuming you guys will show up. Thank you for showing up, by the way. But I'm assuming you're going to show up. What if you don't show up, right? What happens then? So again, having a plan is always great, right? I cannot stress that over enough. You cannot overplan for these camps or anything virtual for that matter. So here's my grid. This is my planning grid. I'm giving you an insight into my brain here, right? This is how I structured. I created a spreadsheet, and in every column was a camp, and then I had my resources. So what's my camp? What's my Zoom link? Who's my presenter? Who's my facilitator? And who's my tech support? Camp, presenter, tech support, anybody else. So every day, looking at them in columns, I was able to kind of figure, okay, I need somebody for here, I need somebody for here, and that's how I kind of was able to manage and create it. Now, I am a former engineer. I have tons of certifications in project management. Those are overrated, right? This is a lot harder than it is, right? Just having a simple spreadsheet is going to just save you a bunch of time. And again, you want to share your planning guide with everybody, right? Because people have to know what you're thinking. So however you're structuring your camp, feel free to share this with your partners, share with your presenters, share with the tech support, because everybody's got to be on the same game plan. And once everybody knows, the content generation becomes a lot easier after that. So kind of more of a zoomed in look a zoomed in look at this, right? On the left side, I had all my resources people, my personnel. And then here I had the roles, right? So this is day one, 3 camps going on at the same time, right? Who are my presenters? Well, for digital citizenship, it was Maggie. I was doing STEM projects. And of course, ePortfolio was Carla. So was a facilitator. So I can use her in another camp, right? I need a facilitator for ePortfolio. So I found somebody else. JJ was available. And of course, then I had my tech guys, Ruben, Rebecca, and Beto. And I guess I needed somebody for my session as another facilitator. And again, just gonna go and share everybody. After day one, we came back, did a little debrief, what worked well, what didn't work well, right? So day two, what's the plan? Is everybody on board? How are we doing? What do we need? Someone may not make it. What's the backup plan, right? Of course, day three, and then day four, right? Again, simple little spreadsheet, nothing too crazy, no Gantt charts, nothing like that. Just showing people, look, here's the time, here's the links, here's the meeting, here's the meeting ID. That all just helps just the planning side of it, right? So beyond that, our partners, this is the people that contracted us to do the camps, right? You're gonna have a partner. I'm gonna list everybody, right? So it's in their best interest that these camps were a success. So I gave them a role. I go, hey, I invited them in, even though they're paying me to do the camp. I was, hey, I'd love to have you be part of this, right? Kind of like a Huckleberry Finn. Look, painting the fence. It's so much fun. Come on, you want to be part of this, right? And then I gave them a role. So on the very left side, you'll notice I just gave Dr. Marta Cantu, the leader of their program, right? I just opened up the camp experience so they could come in and see what they're paying for, right? So
we got a question on that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think it was referring to the last slide that you covered, but just to understand, this is from Viola, just understand the same facilitator for all 3 workshops in one day?
No. So like for example, facilitator was there for, like Maggie, she was there for STEM projects. And then I had JJ for ePortfolios, and then I had Annabelle for virtual STEM projects. So we had one dedicated facilitator for that particular camp, right? So here I had 3 going on at the same time. Hopefully that answered the question. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So again, going back to your partners, try to get as many people involved because that's going to help in many different ways, right? So I want to give you just a run through of the camp itself, right? And again, you want to share it with the team, right? So when you do a run through, you're doing a run through with everybody, right? Before the camp. In this case, I developed we designed a website. Like here's a student website that has everything that we're going to give the students, every link, every image, every presentation. It's all here, right? So even though we're different camps, right? We all report to the Zoom session at 8:30. We do a welcome at 9. We do a little introduction at 9:30. The reason you have this schedule is not for us to deliver. It's for the students. The first day, they're like, okay, what's going on? And the second day, well, they already know the schedule, right? It happened, right? By the time they're in, day 4, they're like, hey, what's happening next? Well, I already know what's happening because I've seen the schedule. So that consistency is going to just make it better and better and better. One thing that we noticed is that students initially weren't really sharing their screens, but by the end of the week, man, everybody's sharing their screen because they want to participate, because they want to. It's a safe place. Right now, half the people in this room are not sharing their screen. Why? Because you don't know me. But I guarantee you, if I spend time with you all in 3 days, everybody in this session is going to be sharing the screen. It's just human nature, right? Not so much just, anything that people just don't want to share the screens, and we get it, right? Another thing to think about is the checklist for the host. So in this case, I'm the host, right? So know who the co-hosts are. So here I know Brooke is my co-host, right? She's going to be recording. Nicole, Lisa, they're all co-hosts, right? And they're going to help me manage. So you're very explicit with that during your planning, right? And how you're going to record the sessions, who's going to record it, and all that good stuff, right? If you want to monitor student screen stuff, like we explored using a tool called Go Guardian, where you're able to push out certain pages and really monitor what they're doing in their screen, but not just for long-term basis. I think that having a monitoring, I'm sorry, my internet's a little bit unstable here. Having a monitoring tool is actually a good idea, but we're still looking at it. But in your case, if you want to look at it, this one resource that we think that I want to share with you, because we were thinking about using them. It's just that we're trying to figure out a good way to kind of bring that in as well. If you are going to monitor, you're going to have to give students access. So for Go Guardian, what it is you give students a Google account and a password, and you're able to see and monitor everything they're doing on your screen, independent of Zoom, right? You're able to see everything that's going on their screen, you don't have to or whatever, right? You just have more control. And you see this a lot in just like technology classrooms in just high schools or elementaries, where the tech teacher is trying to monitor the content. It's the same concept, except now you're doing it at a distance, right? General presenter tips and tools. In terms of resources, we used all kinds of stuff. Mentimeter.com, Padlet. We used All App, which is just an online whiteboard. Just all kinds of great tools to get kids to kind of, get some energy. What you don't want to do is what I'm doing right now is just talking to people. I'm not using a lot of really good pedagogy here. But again, you want to mix it up as much as you can, right? So here's an example of Padlet, right? Students were creating a product, and we had to have somewhere for them to post it. So Padlet was a kind of a cool little resource because they posted their products, but they're also able to comment on each other's products and give each other feedback. And we wanted to really promote that. Like, it's okay to get feedback. You want to get kids to kind of get that thick skin. I'm going to get feedback on this, and that means that I'm going to be able to improve, right? And so again, Padlet, All App, just different ways to getting them to share their content and get feedback. Breakout rooms, right? Oh yeah, got to use the breakout rooms. The Brady Bunch. Who would have thought the Brady Bunch was like freaking, was that another question? Go ahead.
Yes, so we have another question. Thank you. Yes. For the pronunciation, Paula. Students use 2 logins, one for Zoom and the other for the Guardian software, or do they only have to sign in with the Guardian software?
So they log in to Zoom, and then they sign in to Go Guardian with a password that we create. Yes, so there's actually 2. Zoom is not really a sign-in, it's just click and you go, right? But the actual sign-in there's a formal sign-in. So yes, to answer your question, yes. You can think of it as 2 sign-ins. Yeah, okay. Okay, so again, breakout rooms, we want to avoid the Brady Bunch effect, right, where everybody's kind of looking around, right, not knowing what to do. We noticed that our kids may not be familiar with breakout rooms, so we took time to kind of, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be in a room together, and then we're going to break you out, and you're going to be in little teams, and then we're going to bring you back in, right? So taking time to really, help students feel comfortable with this process of leaving a room, coming on, and then coming back. Just because, they may not have experienced that, so just be cognizant of that you may have to train students to be able to do this. When you're in breakout rooms, just keeping it to like 3 to 5 kids, right? And then just as a leader, I would broadcast messages out like, here's how much time you have left. If I want them to think about a certain question or something that I'm seeing, type it in. Right now, talk about this, right? And again, using shared documents like either Google Docs, shared slide decks, dropping links in the chat. all that kind of helps just manage the camp content as you're going through this experience with them, right? At the end of the camp, the design team always met, right? So we always met and said, okay, what went well? First of all, start there, right? What were the positive things? Oh, kids showed up. Yes. Yes. Okay, so beyond kids showing up, what can we change? Because again, you're gonna have to change certain things, right? On a day-to-day to plan for the next day. So whatever that is, just make sure you come together, if anything, just for moral support, because again, it is kind of crazy when you're doing this with so many kids, right? You want to kind of get together and just reinforce your mission and your vision, what you're trying to get done, right? This is something that we did on a daily basis. We all agreed on a certain set of norms for students and for the teachers, right? So reinforcing this every day, making sure that, because, I mean, kids are going to be kids, right? We had one kid sabotage somebody else's presentation, right? I mean, it's going to happen, right? Especially because it was a shared document. So we were like, okay, we can't do shared documents for this team here. So we got to, figure something out. Reinforcing these student norms is just a good practice, right? So make sure you do that as part of what you're doing with your camps, right? And final tips in terms of organization is know your audience, right? If it's elementary, work on your voice, right? More visual. Middle school, make sure you're active, because if you're not active, they'll find ways to be active and be mischievous. And if you're in high school, give them more time to talk to themselves, right? In high school, let go of let them spend more time in breakout rooms to really discuss. And you'll see those kids really come alive and talk to each other. So kind of get out of the way a little bit, right? Whereas elementary may be more present. In high school, give them their space, right? And you'll see a lot more productivity from them as well. Set clear goals and expectations. I can't reinforce enough. Know why you're doing this, right? What is the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish here, right? What I'm doing here, right? Talking just on and on and on. Keep your lectures to 20 minutes or less, and then do something. Do a poll, take them to a whiteboard, do a Padlet, ask a question, take them to a breakout room, because the span time, they're done listening to you. And you may think you're being very, oh, they're still with me. They're gone, right? They're out there, getting something to drink, so 20 minutes or less, and have a timekeeper that tells you, oh, it's been 20 minutes. Okay, I'm done. I mean, like, it's literally just cut me off. Let's do something, because that's going to keep the motivation, right? Balance sync and async, right? Synchronous and asynchronous, meaning if I'm talking to you, everything's online, fine. But then asynchronous is that I get off. I give you 30 minutes of being away from the screen to do something. A lot of times we have this preconception that being virtual means I have to be here with you for 4 hours. That's not learning, right? I got to let go of this, right? I got to stop my screen, leave, go do something, and then come back and have something to show, right? So that's the asynchronous part, right? Like, you may have to leave and do something, right? The other thing is you may want to assign something for homework, right? Asynchronously, right? So for the next day, make sure you read this article. For the next day, do this, right? That's another part of the asynchronous part of it, right? And again, avoid forcing kids to share their cameras. Again, you may not know what's happening in the background. Maybe they're in the kitchen and that's the only space that they get Wi-Fi. So of course they're gonna have big brother or little sister running around. Encourage them to use the chat instead, right? It's kind of the safer option, right? If cameras are on, know that background. I already talked about that. The distractions happen, right? And they happen even here with us, right? So it's gonna happen to them as well, right? All right, so I've said that. Let me turn it over and let me show you real quick. I'm gonna share something here. Let's see here. What am I gonna share? One quick second. Let me stop the share for a second. I'm gonna share an actual example of our camp. Give me one quick second. Let me pull this up. It seems to have pull this up real quick. My bandwidth is kind of slow here. To present, okay. Get back here. All right, let me share this again. All right. Brooke, can you see that? Okay. Okay, So again, this is my rollout. This is one of the camps that I rolled out as part of STEM at home projects. One of the goals that the camp said is, look, kids are home. Can you do something for them at home? You know, something active.
I don't think that was on purpose. Continue.
Okay, what was that?
I don't think she did that on purpose. I think that she didn't mean to unmute, so.
Oh, okay. Well, let me know. So again, this was their vision. They wanted me to kind of really engage them in, right? So this is what we came up with, right? Of course, I started with general housekeeping. You know, always want to do that, general rule. I talked about, you know, this is my day at the camp, but you may have another presenter, right? So I'm letting the kids know that, you know, that there's going to be other things happening throughout the week. Share the calendar with them, make sure that they knew how to get to a certain camp throughout the week. Reinforced the website with them as well. Went over the schedule. I did talk about materials just in case they needed to, you know, have some material ready. And I gave them some time. Go out and see if you can find some of this stuff, right? Here's a simple little list of what we're going to be using. I'll give you time throughout the day, but again, if you don't, that's okay. Try to find some of this stuff. It's everyday stuff, right? And then of course, I went over student norms and student norms with the teachers, what I expected for them throughout the camp. I gave them a small chance to kind of introduce themselves at the chat, also just to practice going into a chat room and back. Really, that's what I wanted to do, right? But again, simple, quick win, name, school, and give me one goal you have for the summer, right? Something simple, right? And then I started in the camp, right? So when I started the camp in true PBL fashion, then I start with the guiding question, right? You know, is COVID-19 a problem in the RGV, right? Why should you care? And what can we do about the situation, right? So I didn't front load any content. I just hit him with the question, right? I get him some data. This is regional data. I said, look, in the COVID-19, in our region, here's some of the data. And I asked them, what do you see in the data? And then they use a chat. And some kids say, oh, look, the 20-year-olds, there's a spike. So then I asked them, why do you think the 20-year-olds there's a spike? And they were very kind and said, well, it's because they're partying and they don't care, right? Or, you know, they gave some other explanations, right? But the point is that I'm not telling them, I'm just asking them. I'm presenting data and having them decide, do you think this is a problem or not?
Hey, Gustavo.
Yes, ma'am.
We have another question from Leah. GeoForce used pocket Wi-Fi as opposed to hotspots due to our inability to link to an account. Did you find any other good solutions to Wi-Fi access?
You know what, we didn't. That's the number one question that we're getting, right? How do we get access, right? We've explored different different solutions, but really it's kind of deferring to the schools on a campus per campus basis almost sometimes, depending on where they're at. But no, we look forward to maybe exploring GeForce and some other solutions as well. But thank you for that. So again, regional data, again, just sharing them data, and having them kind of make up their own, you know, minds about what they're seeing and how they're seeing it, right? Took me to the website here. Let me go here. All right. And again, just giving them enough time to process the information and just ask them, what do you think you know about this? You know, how do you explain the situation? What do you expect is going to happen, right? So then we put them I put them in the role of, okay, what can you do, right? And I shared, these are my masks. These are masks that I had made for my family. I go, here's what I did given the situation, right? I mean, I took out my and I sewed up some masks for my family, right? Pulled out. So I shared a driving question, right, to guide the camp. And every camp had a driving question, right? This is just one for this. What actions can you take to awareness and advocate for me, right? Put them in the stance of, you know, put them in the role of, there's information, right? Take some action toward it, right? So we know that we started with masks, you know, why are masks good? So I asked them, you know, instead of telling them what a mask is, I did a little poll using Mentimeter. I asked them what makes a good mask and why is it important to protect ourselves? Rather than having someone telling that, why do you think it's true, right? You tell me why it's a good idea, right? And so then these are some of their examples. Using Mentimeter, because it's free and it's easy, I was able to poll their ideas online, right? And so they were very kind of, a mask covers your mouth, it's made out of silk, The second question I used, I changed the settings on Mentimeter, and I did a word cloud. So as they were answering, now it was okay, answer the question, but no, this time you're not going to answer just like with the text box. We're going to create a word cloud and see, are there any common themes that I'm hearing, right? And again, just a different way of flicking, so they can see that when they input something, boom, something's happening on the screen, and they're collectively, this learning group of people, right, around these concepts, right? So then I said, okay, let's practice voice and choice. Let's go out there and get some materials, right? So these are the challenges that I had for them for my particular camp. The first challenge was this: virus anatomy. Let's learn about this virus. What do we know about it, right? How can we educate people about it, right? So in terms of biology, there's some things we could talk about, right? And again, of course, I leaned on my facilitator, who happened to be a biology teacher, my facilitator, and she talked a bit about the proteins and how the virus behaves, right, and the structure. But then it's like, you know what? Let's just create a physical model, just to go out into your house, find some basic materials, right, whatever you can find, and give us a little model of the virus, but then tell us about it, right? So one thing is create the model, but then tell us something about it that we didn't already know. And so it's kind of like a little challenge, right? I create the model, but then I'm explaining something else. So they're out there researching, they're finding stuff online, and they're bringing something else to the conversation, right? So real quick win, right? A real quick win. Anybody can do this, right? Beyond that, the second challenge was, okay, so now how can you protect yourself, right? So then we're like, okay, we all use hand sanitizer. Why don't we make that a challenge, right? So go out into your house, create a mixture to serve as a chemical barrier defense against COVID. Find some alcohol, find some aloe vera gel, or just the aloe plant. Those are real common in our area. And just any kind of scent, either oil-based scents, sprays, whatever, and come up with your own recipe for hand sanitizer, right? This was amazing. We had all these little chemists making stuff on the screen like this, like, doing it live. And I encourage you do it too. Like when I did the model, I was there like messing with toothpicks. In this case, I had the alcohol, and I was pouring it, and I was mixing it, and I was smelling it, and I was engaging them. They had their cameras off, but I left mine on. And at the end, I'd spray with whatever I was spraying to make sure that it was good. I took some of it, tested it, and so once they saw me do it, then they wanted to do it. So then when we took them out to the breakout rooms, they were like, oh, I want to go first. I want to go first. I want to go first, right? It's a chemical solution is what it is. It's a chemical mixture, right? You can get into very high level, concepts if you wanted to. But in this case, I was just happy with, just tell me your recipe, right? How did you go about doing this? And they'll tell you, well, I mixed it with this. I got this bowl, I didn't have aloe-based products, so I used some cream, whatever they had, it doesn't really matter. You want to engage them in the process, right? And in the end, I had them tell me your recipe. What is your recipe? Using isopropyl, 80%, right? Or I use 1 tablespoon of aftershave from my dad because that's all I had, right? Whatever it is. Again, you want them just to kind of present what they will come up with. Forget about being something online and then going out to the house and finding stuff to create a product, right? A home run. It was really a home run. And the final challenge was just, advocacy. We know we have to protect ourselves. Let's make a mask, right? So the challenge is this: you're going to take a t-shirt, get an old t-shirt that you don't want anymore, and I want you to create a mask that maybe you can test, right? Cut it out any way you want to, not too many guidelines, kind of open-ended, right? and let's see how close you can get to make a mask. And this was actually really fun. You know, it's like, I think scissor cutting is probably a skill that's underdeveloped sometimes. they cut their t-shirts in so many different ways, right? It was crazy. These are high school kids, right? Maybe elementary kids get more practice, but high school kids, I mean, it's like, how do I use this thing, right? It was so much fun, right? And of course, you know, if they didn't have a t-shirt, you know, maybe there's a handkerchief or something you can use, an old pillowcase. If you have to use, well, just use paper, you know, use a roll of paper if you have to, right? Again, the whole thing is just create a design that you can showcase, right? So here's some of the pictures of the kids, right? I mean, it was just a great experience for us, right? At the end of the day, you want kids to, you want to support them academically, you want to support them emotionally, and you know, as a community of learners, right? Get them excited, right? A lot of them just, you could tell they just wanted to connect. I mean, they're just kind of tired of being home, and they're just so happy to just be part of something that they really came together. So beyond that, I want to open up to any questions you might have at this time. At this point, Brooke, any questions people might have regarding this experience that we had with the students?
Yeah, so feel free to drop it in the chat if you don't want your real speaking voice to be heard, or if you're a little shy, you can drop it in the chat and I'd be happy to share it out loud, or you can unmute yourself and ask. Personally, I was rolling laughing when you were talking about the scissors. Oh my God. Like, that is like the realest comment I have heard all day, is that high school kids, like, and I put in the chat, I said, after kindergarten, I think we all forget how
Absolutely.
to use
No, I mean, it was
on the dotted line.
It's just an assumption, but here I'm here on the screen, and I'm watching kids like struggling with some scissors. I'm like, we haven't reinforced that skill for some reason, right? Because they're not having a good experience. But I just will say that, I mean, I will say this though, it does take a team effort to roll out a good camp, just like anything else. Different people are going to bring different ideas, right? The important thing is to have a good attitude about it and know that things are going to go crazy. As much as you plan, you want to make it a good experience. You know, we had, like I said, we had a couple, one student who started sabotaging people's, you know, shared presentations. So, because we were using a shared Google slide deck for presentations, and you know what, it didn't work. We had to go out there and give each team their own dedicated slide deck, because, you know, this one student was trying to, you know, little prankster. It's going to happen, right? We assume we're all adults, and we know, we'll just share a slide deck. What's the big deal, right? No. He'd go in there and he'd mess up their font, or he'd, you know, put something in there, and it's just, yeah, it just didn't work. And then nothing against the child. I mean, it's just, you know, he's at that age level that, you know, it's going to happen. The important thing is to stay positive and say, okay, fine, it happened, let's move on, right?
So
yes.
another question, what, you know, outside of that story, what were some other crises or unexpected things that happened?
So one of the things that is that kids will their bandwidth will, it's just like us, you'll lose connection. You know, all of a sudden Brooke's gone. Now what? And she's the co-host. you know, it's like, what do you do when someone, like, that's one of the main things, is like, so especially like if you're in a breakout room and somebody gets kicked out, when they come back in, they're no longer in that breakout room. They're in the main room. So you have to know, you have to have somebody there in the main room to be monitoring, because when they come back in, you gotta be, okay, where were you? Okay, so then you drops, and then we had to kind of figure out, okay, where were you again? And they'll tell you. Like right now, I'm getting internet connection is unstable. Okay, even my end. So you never know, right? That was one thing that was unexpected. The other thing that maybe unexpected was, these are high school kids, right? So initially, they don't share their screen. For some reason, we thought that maybe they'd be more, you know, they would be able more, like, you know, open about sharing the screens, but then they share their screens towards the end of the day, right? Maybe they're waking up, I don't know. Maybe in the beginning it's just like, you know, my daughter's here from college, and she literally, you know, goes to class half asleep on the bed, right? So you never know how they're engaging in the camp. But towards the end, we'll see that you'll see a lot more activity in terms of sharing their screens and so forth. So those are a couple of things. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions you might have?
Yeah, we have about 5 minutes left in our time.
Well, sorry, I kind of rushed it a little bit. I wasn't sure
No,
if I was gonna have enough time. So
I thought it was a great
let's see here.
I guess I kind of have a question for you. So if you were
Sure.
kind of taking that last comment that you said about, especially when you're working with teenagers, if you were to do this again, would you shift the times to be more late morning, early afternoon, or why was it specific that you had that 9 to noon half day time period for the classes?
It's a great question. Absolutely, we would change it. Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. We would start around probably 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Right. You know, my son's a sophomore, and the guy's he's a vampire, right? So, you know, he sleeps during the day, he's awake all night, he's a gamer, and you know, it is what it is, right? So rather than try to force him to, you know, wake up at 9, you know, like what? Who wakes up at 9? Come on, you crazy? You know, who does that? Finding good ways to manage that. So I think I would maybe work with just starting a little bit later in the day, which doesn't change. It's still the same content, right? And the other thing is that me spacing out the camps face to face, where you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It might be a better model to do maybe a camp on Monday, give them a break on Tuesday, come back on Wednesday, break on Thursday, and then come back on Friday. So just because you need some time to regroup as a team and make changes, and you may need that extra day to make those tweaks. You know, if you want to do it week to week, that's another possibility. But again, you have to have that time gap so that you're able to adjust.
So we do have another question from Paula. She said that you mentioned a couple different programs. One was Go Guardian, and wasn't there another one? I think there was Padlet. And
Yes. So let me share with you. And again, this is on the PDF that I shared with you at the beginning. Let me share with you. Am I still sharing with you, Brooke? Okay.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yeah, so these are some of the ones that we used. You know, All App right here, this is a really cool little online whiteboard, right? So let me share with you some of those products of what it looked like. So these are all little models created by multiple students on the same screen. Right. So the challenge was, you know, create a model for the COVID based on what you know, right? And so each one of these was created by a different group of students in a different breakout room, all of them drawn on the same digital whiteboard, right? So this is using All App, right? This right here, this is called clickbait, right? Clickbait. Clickbait is a way for kids to create like a newscast, right? That's fake. there's so many fake stuff out there. So part of the digital citizenship part was recognizing when something's fake and when it's not fake. And so create your own version of clickbait to get people to click on your screen. And this is some of the examples, right? Again, this is a free website. They just find an image and type in the headings, and then again it generates a little image for them, right? Here's one that I just created myself. This is my version of clickbait. I just put teachers take action against Corona, right? It's not real, but it looks real. You know, it's like a local newscast, right? And let's see here, what else? Yeah, so those are a couple of resources that we used that, again, that we found pretty useful throughout the camp. Padlet, again, we use Padlet quite extensively. We use shared, like I said, shared Google Docs, and of course Mentimeter for some of the polling, right? Mentimeter is free for up to like 3 questions. So I would just delete the question and just create a new one, instead of going for the full version, right? That's just my workaround. Another one that I use quite a lot was classroomscreen.com. It's a really cool website that gives you just a way to monitor, timing. Like it's like think of it as like a teacher dashboard. So I'm gonna pull it up here so you can see what it looks like real quick. A lot of really cool that you can use while you're working online, just to manage your classroom, right? And I'll show that for you in a second. And again, I use this quite a bit, right? So, here's kind of there's a general background you can choose, but all these tools on the bottom are things you can use. Think of it as just like I said, your online classroom dashboard. So, timer, I use this quite a bit. Let's go. There's a timer there. There's a stopwatch, traffic light. This is kind of cool. You can set different protocols for the kiddos, right? So go. Okay, everybody freeze. Or everybody stop. kind of deal, right? All right, green light, go for it, type deal. So you're basically managing the activities, right? Work symbols are kind of cool, right? Everybody, shh. Okay, go ahead and go to the breakout rooms and talk to each other, right? Ask a neighbor, right? Work together. Again, these are meant for when you're face to face, but they also work really well when you're virtual, right? Text, drawings, QR codes, right? Just different pieces. Nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants, so you just roll the dice, right? Right? All right, group 6, you're next, And it's like, okay, group, well, not group 6 again. Group, whatever, you're next, type deal, right?
All right, so I just want to be mindful of time.
Sure.
It is 2 minutes past. So we will start our next session at 4 o'clock on the dot. I'm sure that Gustavo is more than happy to take some more questions, but just want to be mindful of time. Thank you all for being here and seeing the presentation. If you have to hop out so that you can get that 30-minute break before the 4 o'clock session, please do so. And if you have any other questions, we'll keep the line open for some more questions if you have any.
Brooke, thank you so much for your facilitation. Enjoy the session.
I did. I learned a lot. Thank you.
I had one quick question. You may not have an answer for it, but I've been trying to find some good scavenger hunt apps that I can get my kids outdoors with. We already use things like iNaturalist and eBird and stuff like that. The zoo here in Houston uses one called Goose Chase app, but unfortunately it's $300 for one game with 8 players, and we can't afford that because of the amount of teams we would have. Because I work at a nonprofit. So do you know of any like scavenger hunt or outdoor apps that are free or very cheap that could also somehow get kids outdoors, and because we need them outdoors looking for STEM materials or gathering and bringing things back inside to use in their projects that we do with them?
Sure. I don't know of any. I'll open it up to the group if anybody has a resource.
I was wondering, Gustavo, if that classroom app that you were kind of sharing with us, if that would be able to be used as a scavenger hunt. Maybe you could have kind of like the stoplight, like green go, yellow come back, and then kind of post the list on that. So if students are like going out into nature, bringing their phones with them with Zoom access, and they could see that screen with how much time they have left, along with maybe the text function of writing out all of the scavenger list things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's an option.
That's a possibility, yeah. We do short Zoom lessons, and so usually we tell them to go gather materials and have them ready for class to start. But we right now print paper scavenger hunts that we give to the kids to do. And I was trying to see if there was some virtual way of doing it instead of constantly printing. I mean, we try to be as eco-friendly as possible, but if there was a virtual option of a way to send scavenger hunts and the kids can compete against each other in real time, but at home, or if we had an event, like a family event, and we had multiple teams sign up, that we can send them out on a scavenger hunt, and they would have access to a list in one place, and they can check it off or send a picture as they're finding the things in nature.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've asked a few other people and no one's, I've only come across the one app and it's just too expensive for us. So I was trying to find other apps that might be available, but.
So it might be a logistical nightmare, depending on how many kids you have engaged in that scavenger hunt. They could essentially have kind of like a shared Google Doc, kind of how Gustavo was talking about, how they have like a shared project that they're all working on at the same time. So then you could maybe, or a Google Sheet for that matter, where they just start tracking all of their things. They have their own column and they upload pictures and things like that. And then if you're sharing the screen, then you can share like, Johnny's in the lead, or Priscilla is in the lead. So you can kind of use that classroom app to kind of track what's happening live in the Google Doc.
Okay.
I'm just throwing out ideas, trying to find because it's a
good idea. Sure. Yeah.
There used to be an app, and I can't remember the name of it. I thought it was Erasma, but basically you would it was about scavenger hunts, but using QR codes, and so you'd put up QR code somewhere, and then it's like boom, and take you somewhere.
Okay.
But again, you still have to print it out, I guess, so that kind of defeats the purpose. But I'm trying to remember what it was called.
I was just looking online, and sadly, one of the best apps that actually lets you take pictures and everything is an app called Bachelor Party. And I'm not sure it's child appropriate, but it works the way you want it to. Don't think I'd use it.
I think I found this one here. It's called Erasma app. Let me pull it up real quick for you. It's an augmented reality app, but and again, I don't know. Let's see here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of Erasma. It's a kind of a cool little. It's based on images, but I don't know if you could adapt it to a scavenger hunt. I think I've seen people do it in different ways. Just using QR codes for images, and then they go off to somewhere else. And
yeah, because the thing about the Goose Chase app that's so great is that they have all these preset images and preset scavenger hunts, and it's really easy. They can all log in and they can all in real time compete and communicate, mark things off if they're finding them. We just, I mean, if we're having 50, 60 kids and you can only have 8 players or 8 teams, but if the families want to do them individually, I mean, it would still cost us $300. We would have to charge a lot to cover those expenses. And our whole goal is to bring families out and want to get them in nature, but not also like have them go broke doing it. So, yeah, there's gotta be something. The bachelor party one sounds interesting. I'll try to look into that one.
Yeah, retrofit, right?
Maybe we can make it work. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Gustavo, we'll keep the line open as long as you are happy and willing to do so until about 3:45, and then we'll let our next presenter come in and set up their screen and get ready and prepared.
I just wanted to ask, have you looked at, or are you looking at doing any camps below the high school age? And do you work with any partners outside of the Rio Grande Valley who aren't donors, just there to help with information?
Absolutely. I actually just presented a session on using Minecraft Educator Edition for esports.
Okay.
For elementary. Of course, you know, young kids, man, they love Minecraft. I still don't know why, but my kids are just addicted to Minecraft. And Microsoft has partnered with Microsoft with Minecraft, and if they basically have a Microsoft account, then they get a free version of Minecraft Educator Edition. And there's about 7 worlds that are already set up for gaming. So you can set up your own esports challenge. Kids go in there and they engage in building different things and just coding different things. And it seems to be really promising, more on the I guess the esports virtual world. And so that's one area where I think I'm going to be exploring a little bit more, probably putting together a little semi competition, maybe inviting some campuses and see how it goes. Yeah.
All right, excellent. Well, you may hear from me.
Sure.
I work with Capital Area Council running camps with Boy Scouts, but a lot of the things that you were covering, it's like, oh, I do that. Just, you know, you have a spreadsheet. I would do it in Google Calendars, but it was amazing to watch some of the similarities. And there were some things that you said, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to say it his way from here on out. That was way better than I explained it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just drop me a line. I'll be happy to share that presentation with you on esports for Minecraft.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Sure. Well, Brooke, I'm going to go ahead and sign out. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. And again, folks, all the best to you, all luck to you. And just, again, reach out to us as needed. And, you know, go STEM.
Thank you, Gustavo. Have a great day.
Thank you.